No.
Yeah, sorry, I should have sent out an email. Hey, how's it going? A little bit of cold, so I'm good.
Yeah.
Chief?
How are you?
Good. Busy. Looks like you did fine.
Indiana. Can you hear me? Essendon. Essendon, this is Indiana. Can you guys hear me? I don't know if you guys can hear me. Thank you, Essendon. I can hear it. Thank you, Edwina. I don't know what's really going on, but I know it's a City Hall Citizens Police Advisory Committee meeting. So I decided to attend. Exercise my first here. Repress. But I guess they have a closed door. Thank you, Press.
Gloria? Yeah. This is Patricia Simpson with CPAC. Ready for meeting? Yes, I am. Okay, well, we're here then. It is straight up 6 o'clock. Are we ready?
Yes, we are. I am.
Okay. All right, then we'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. We have a full house today. David, how are you? All right. First item is approval of minutes from January 17th, 2023.
I was already told.
Has everybody had a chance to review them? Are there any changes,
All right, guys, I'm trying to keep it down here.
additions?
I want to interrupt.
Motion, second.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Motion by Michelle, second by Terry.
You told me that
I did not do that.
Yeah, me either, so don't feel bad. All right, are there any nays? If not, motion carries, minutes are approved.
you told me I had to leave.
Chief?
They're gonna close the door, I guess.
Well, good to see you all.
Yes, good to see you.
We're gonna be on the move with briefer timeline today. I've been informed that the construction has nicked the gas line and there's no heat on this end of the building. So we won't stay, deep into the night like maybe other meetings. Really, we've had a couple of highlights. But I think things that we've enjoyed a little calmer days.
Jose, welcome.
The big things we talked some about at the last meeting, legislative session was in process until Saturday. It just wrapped up.
That's what I just asked
There
you.
were a number of bills kicking around that we watched pretty carefully. We had some things go our way and some things didn't go our way. Para did extend to 30 to 100%.
Thank you, Indiana.
100% of your pension if you stay. I think for most of my younger staff, it's over 30 years. But if it's my existing staff when I got here, then it is like 28 and a half years. So that probably will have an influence on the back end of some of the careers on people that were nearing the end and more likely to retire. Now they'll probably do some reassessing on that. So that was a win.
Andre, the secretary, told me I had to stay back here.
Of a retire and rehire bill, which we talked about some last time. The bill was flawed in some ways from what maybe we desired. It was, you had to be out of the business for a year, and then you come back for a 3-year max.
I'm not sure. Do we know? I just maybe got here.
And so you're not accruing the benefits, but you are able to work in government for up to 3 years. There was I think a 6-year sunset on that bill, so they'd have had the legislature would have had to say, yes, we want to keep it in 2029. Unfortunately, that bill did not pass. The 1 year would have been a little problematic for police. That's a long time to be out, you're probably gonna have found something else to do, that's completely not police related. Maybe some of the other jobs that are within the city have done something similar to that and then still come back at the end of the year. So this would have been everybody in government, not just police. And you're seeing shortages in all sorts of different fields across New Mexico government. So I was hopeful for it, and it is not a popular bill, in particular with labor unions. They just went pretty hard against those bills, and so it was defeated. There were a number of police reform, if you will, bills. One significant one by the ACLU was the primary architect of it, and you see it in California and some other states out west, all very similar bills. It was Senate Bill 252. That bill and Senate Bill 19, which was one that was more moderate and was the Chiefs of Police Association had more input into that one, and we were working with the sponsor of that one. Both of those were tabled in kind of a combined version of the two was ultimately passed by the legislature. It was nothing bad for police, but it was good for some of the accountability issues. They want to form a database, so when we send in an LEA 90, which is a document on an officer, if we're saying they should not be an officer anymore based on the violations that we saw, then the state handles the licensing of it. If they decide to pull the license, they want a database that the public can search, and you can see immediately what happened to those. That's not a bad bill. That would even help departments that are doing their own backgrounds on prospective new hires to make sure that they actually are qualified to be a police officer still. There were some other provisions in it that were not bad. So overall, I was not dissatisfied that the Senate Bill 252 was going to be problematic. It would have ended
Indiana Auditor, Sean
a lot of
Detroit.
our uses of canines, and some of it was just disappointing. There wasn't more outreach to the chiefs because they said you can't use a police canine. Well, the police canine program started around the country because of nonviolent felonies like burglary, right? So we show up at a building, you're going to search a warehouse. There's maybe a suspect inside there, but it isn't a violent crime. But nonetheless, you're going to search an entire building, and
Exactly.
officers were killed doing those things, and so now you use canines, you send it, you make an announcement, have the guy surrender, or you send in the canine to clear the building. That would not have been permissible anymore under that law. So that was problematic. There were a couple other parts I didn't like. Banned almost all use of tasers, except in the most extreme circumstances. Other parts of it, like not shooting at moving vehicles or not shooting from moving vehicles, would have been things that we easily would have lined up with. So there were parts that weren't bad with it, but it just went awful far. So I was pleased for now that it was defeated, but it probably will be back in some form. It was very similar bill 2 years ago. Probably will be registered again, I guess, 2 years from now. So the legislative session was fairly intense this year, but not as bad as some. We had a budget season, which we're still kind of going through. All the departments have submitted their budgets. Our economy has been doing fairly well, although we own our own electric utility, and the electric utility has definitely had harder days with this closing of the generating station. They've had to go out and buy electricity to meet some of the local needs, and that the purchase of that electricity has been a lot. So that has impacted the city's budget forecasts, and so that will impact to what extent, I'm not sure yet. They're still working through it. As you know, with our budget process, it goes to June 30th, probably mid-June. The final budget will be approved. You'll have a chance to see that in council as we roll along. We had promotions. I think it was in late January after we had been here with you all for sergeant. Sergeant panels, which I know Tracy's been on, and that, we have been on as well. So we had good candidates this time. That had been a concern for us over the last few. We were really getting very few candidates. We actually had talked some about going outside for sergeant candidates, which is going to be problematic. But you need X number of supervisors.
We'll press
So I
those
was
tools
pleased
back
we
here.
had some pretty good candidates step up. We've already promoted, 3 of them, and, likely we'll get into about 4 this time. So, our biggest challenge really right now has been our numbers and retaining and recruiting. And that's getting to be a little bit of a stuck record with me, I know. But I was just looking at our numbers. Every year we have to submit to the Law Enforcement Protection Fund for, here's the number of officers we have, and then we get money back from the state based on that. Last year we had 124, and this year we reported 122. And even in reality, that number is somewhat illusory. We're below that already. So we have 2 retirements at the end of February, and we have 2 others that are leaving, one in April and, well, 2 in April. So, that is not great news for us. It looks like we'll have another retirement in July. So we're scrambling, and it's disappointing because we've been hiring hard. And a year later, we're down 2, and probably, a little more than that by the end of the retirements. So it does go to show, and we talked about this when we were going through some of the post-employed experience, that it isn't just money. We've thrown a lot of money. FP got a 15% raise last year in the contract. There's a bonus even that we got, a small one. But that isn't what's driving police retention or even police recruiting. And so you're seeing guys who could stay and get their high 3 years, and they're leaving anyway. Didn't matter that they just got a big raise, they're still leaving. We had one kid left to be a truck driver, another kid just didn't like the schedule, wasn't working with his family, he's leaving us. Another guy just moved out of state, wanted to try somewhat different. So that is really our biggest threat is how are we going to continue to infuse new talent in the leadership chain while also bringing in a lot of new kids. And the combination of young officers and young supervisors keeps us having a lot of meetings on how we're doing and how we can make sure that we're still doing well. So that is undoubtedly 2023 will shape up to be that is our top priority, is figuring out what we're going to do with our numbers and then being as efficient as we can with the bodies we have. We did shut down one of our units already. It was
Welcome, Adam.
we just didn't have the bodies for it. We were flopping them on the patrol to keep up patrol numbers, and then we reconstituted. Eventually we will do something like that.
Showing control.
Things like trafficking and things like that. So stuff that we want and need, but which we just can't support right now with the bodies. So we're going to talk more about that today. We don't have any executive session for you. We will talk about some of the things that we're doing with our recruiting and retention program and some of the findings that we're getting from other departments across the country. Certainly, if you're watching, it's everybody from Albuquerque to San Francisco to other mid-sized agencies just like us. So everybody is struggling. And that kind of brings me to the last one that I have for you. Tomorrow morning, there's the sentencing of Elias Buck. He's the guy who shot our officer last year. And kind of goes into what I was talking about the struggles to recruit and retain. You've got to get people to believe that this is a noble profession that people want to be part of, that is respected, that we have your back as a community when you're just a young officer, or you're going to go and do something different. Anything safer that doesn't end in my being sued or my being killed. And the shooting here came at a horrible time for us, right? It was in the middle of already pretty negative times towards the police. It was the first time in over 30 years we had a Farmington officer shot, and almost couldn't be a worse time, but there's probably never a great time either. So tomorrow, I'll be traveling to Albuquerque and speaking at the sentencing for Mr. Buck. I'm not sure what he's facing, but I think it's going to be a significant time because he escaped from Colorado armed with a gun that was stolen. So, but that does go to show there's many, and we talk about them here. There's many challenges to being an officer, and we screw up some, sometimes disappointingly so. But we have a lot of good young people that we're asking to go out and do a difficult job, and they face challenges like that, you just don't think of until you're in the middle of it. The officer is back, but it's been a long road back for him and his family. So I'll be pleased to have that case behind us. Other than that, we've just been plugging along, so I'll be available to any questions.
I have a question. Recruitment and retention, not so much retention. What's your budget as far as for CSOs? Do you utilize them as?
We do.
Okay, so.
I think we have 8 that were authorized. They're all transitional positions right now, and we have had some success in hiring people. Sometimes they weren't of age, sometimes they weren't sure they wanted to do the job. Sometimes they hadn't passed the physical standard yet. We could bring them in, they could learn the radio traffic, they could learn navigation, some of the report writing, some of the culture of the agency, and then transition to being a police officer. We've had some success with them. Lately, we've been even struggling to fill CSO ranks. So.
Is it mandatory that it is a transition system?
Right now, it is
police
mandatory.
officer?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to look at different things to help with somebody to do.
Yeah.
You collaborate with San Juan College?
Yeah.
And is it working?
Yes. They are the sponsor of our joint academy out there. So when you go through the academy, you wind up earning college credits with San Juan College, which then, we continue pushing them off to get associate's degrees and continue their education. But they do a good job and have been, good partners with us for a couple of decades.
Thanks.
You mentioned that you have 12 candidates, I think, for the academy or something. On the last meeting, are you still?
Yeah, no, we had 12 that entered the academy, and we are at 9. So we've lost 3, which is actually a distressing attrition rate in the academy. Usually, we kind of get through the academy pretty good. It didn't go well really right out of the shed for a couple of them. One of them couldn't pass the physical, which was a shame. She was a great effort person, but just wasn't able to get it done. I think she ultimately failed the defensive tactics part and heavily, and 2 others left for different reasons. So we're at 9 there. We still have 8 in field training, and one of them just got cut loose or is getting cut loose.
I think they're all still.
Okay, I thought the female was supposed to cut loose.
They're still out. Their evaluation phases.
Okay.
Sean the troll.
But so far, we're more than 2 months in.
Sean live is a troll.
It's, all told, a little over 3 months, and we've got all 8. So there can be a high attrition in field training. Nate has really been kind of an architect of a new way of training, less evaluation, more training focused, and we're pleased with this first round of it. It looks good. The training that we've been using, which is really one of the models in the country, was the same training system I was trained in 1990. So anytime you're doing something that long, it's probably time to revise yourself. It was much more evaluatory, and it came from a period where departments were more worried about the liability of firing somebody than they necessarily were about training, because they had a bunch of guys right behind that would do the job. Well, we don't have that anymore, and so we're really changed the focus to be much more training focused. And so far, we like the result.
Any other questions for Chief?
Have the standards been the same for the past few years for entrance into the
Yeah.
Okay, so you haven't lowered the standards, I think,
No.
not in any area whatsoever.
What we have had to do though is previously people that met the standard were one of many that met the standard, and so you could be much more selective about who you want to hire. Now, although the standard hasn't lowered, we're taking people at times that wouldn't have been in our top 10 last time. So as the number of really good candidates has dwindled, you still have candidates that are passing, but they're not the same that we were getting a few years back. No doubt about that.
Lori, did you have a question?
And you know, you don't.
Okay, so why are the retirees not staying?
That's,
Calm down,
yeah,
Sean.
I don't
Are they
know.
going somewhere else, or they?
You know, one of them, well, you know, one of the things you can do as a retiree, right, is you immediately draw your pension, you go in and work someplace else. And that's not something I haven't been supportive of to a degree. We were talking, that one of my lieutenants had gone up to Durango, was a commander in Durango for a while. And that was what I was arguing down in Santa Fe, that look, why are we having this brain drain to other states when it's the same job, right? It's just 45 minutes north. Why wouldn't we, you know, set a cap on it, maybe even encourage them to go to smaller jurisdictions? So, you know, if you left, you know, to Carrizozo or something like that, maybe you could do it for 5 or 6 years, right? So you could extend that if we would take that down and keep it in New Mexico and to some of the smaller agencies that are struggling, especially in leadership now. But, you know, I think they're doing an analysis of, I can start drawing my pension right now, I can go out and start, you know, doing something else, or I could stay another couple of years to get my I-3. And unfortunately, right now, the metric is, you know, I'm better off taking off. Which is not what I expected, honestly, a year ago when we had a pay raise. I did think it would keep people here a little while longer. It was a chance for us to buy some time and tell our recruiting could help compensate, and we're just not doing that.
A lot of it probably has to do with burnout too. It's a very intense job.
Yeah.
So, you can only take so much and then you become a danger to yourself and others.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Full fat roll.
Tough days for the mighty bad.
Internal Affairs, monthly report.
Good evening. So we,
Double teamers.
yeah,
Okay.
so we have the numbers that Travis will go over here in a moment. I think, we also provided the annual reports from last year, which I promised, at the last meeting. So those, I don't know that we need to go in, deeply unless you, would like to. Probably the two things, looking at the annual pursuit review, we only had a single pursuit last year. Unfortunately, that pursuit was found to be out of policy, but those a lot of times are based on just how the pursuit starts, things like that. We've got strict policy on why, what you can pursue for, what you can't pursue for. And we've tightened that up further, or I guess further clarified the policy for our officers, over the past few years, so that's probably the reason that that's, decreased. As far as the annual use of force review, probably the main thing, looking at it, is our total uses of force in 2022 was 96. So a slight decrease from 2021 where we were at 103, that's on page 4. But again, the last 2 years, 2021 and 2022, had significant decreases from the 3 years prior, 2018, 2019, and 2020. So again, there's a lot of moving parts to that. It would probably be impossible to pinpoint the exact reason why that happens. It's probably a variety of factors. We've invested a lot into training when it comes to de-escalation and crisis intervention training. Over the past few years, we have more annual training when it comes to interacting with the mentally ill. So our officers, I think, are probably better equipped on some of those types of calls to deal with those situations. But I'm sure there's other factors as well. So I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on any of those.
On page 5, it shows use of force, time, and month of incident.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking across at the days of the week.
Mm.
I'm surprised that Tuesday was an active day.
Yeah, that,
lay people would presumably can.
We would presume that too. However, that's not the case for us for this year at least. We don't really have an explanation for that, but yeah, Tuesdays, is significantly higher than the rest of the days at
You know,
19.
they go out taco day somewhere.
Yeah, they do that.
Taco
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
And then they go somewhere else.
Right, and then obviously the highest hour is between 11 PM and midnight, and we have 12 during that time frame. But generally, you know, the evening hours are where we experience most of those.
Each person involved counts as a user.
Right, every
So maybe
person.
the same, there may be one incident, 2 or 4 people.
Right, and one officer can definitely apply more than one application of force per incident, depending on how the situation goes. So it is dependent on, the subject's response to the initial use of force and whether other officers are present.
You look at the number of calls, 73,000 calls, 4,000 arrests, and only 96 uses of force. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
The officers do, I mean, in tough situations where they're trying to deal with, you know, people that are dealing with a wide variety of problems, whether it's just the situation they're in, whether it's drug or alcohol influence, whether it's mental illness, the officers are trying to deal with those situations the best they can.
Using the voice instead of.
And, you know, some of them are just almost unavoidable. It would be virtually impossible, for us to eliminate use of force. There's just some people that no matter how good a job the officer does, they're probably not going to be able to avoid the use of force, because the person they're dealing with has a say in the matter, so. Unfortunately.
So a while back, we got to, me and Trish got to try the VR simulation thing, and it was pretty.
Exactly,
apparent
Chris.
That was part of.
Everybody share everybody's links in life. Support each other.
Administrative first, being able to talk. Has that tool been helpful in this at all?
We haven't fully implemented it yet. With us getting our new building, the nice thing about the new building is we're gonna have some dedicated space where it's going to be set up, full time right now. It takes a little bit to set it up, take it down, and, work through those issues. So the new building is definitely gonna give us an easier method of deploying that and being able to use it more often.
It does take a purpose.
Chief Evie right there.
We can, it's, the multi-purpose room where I think you all went through it, it's tight, there's safety considerations, the new building has a giant, training room, so, if you ever watch some VR stuff on Facebook or stuff, you see people running into walls and doing, crazy stuff, so we always have to be careful with that, so the new building will facilitate that a little bit better.
We do scenario-based training as well throughout the year, and I think that contributes to officer success on the street in these situations as well.
Yeah, the demonstration we were provided, that was probably my biggest takeaway was how professional and how well that was handled when we did that. I was like, wow, that's more than I thought about all this stuff. It was actually cool to see it.
So we can go, to the monthly numbers if you guys would like, and
I will start with January last year. So there were 4 citizen complaints and allegations for mutual respect. 1 there, 2 courtesy, 3 patrol operations, 1 for unbecoming conduct, 1 identification, 2 for in-car body worn cameras, 1 was violation rules, and then carrying and use of a weapon was also one of the allegations. Out of those allegations, 9 allegations were exonerated and 3 were sustained. When comparing to this last year, we had, and I'm sorry, there's a typo at the top, that should be January 2022 versus 23.
Oh, they should be 22 and 23.
Yeah. Sorry about
Twenty-two and
that.
twenty. The top says the correct years, but.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't put them in the correct columns. But no, that should be 22 and 23.
That would be one less job.
We had one citizen complaint in January and allegations that were, looked at there were unsatisfactory performance and, prohibition against bias-based policing. And, that is still not completed yet. That's still pending review. Last year for internal investigations, there were 2 internal investigations and the, allegations were, one for body worn camera, 3 allegations of direction and supervision. One was a use of force allegation, 2 property and evidence management, 1 preliminary and follow-up investigation, 2 allegations of truthfulness, 1 allegation of recording devices, and 2 for poor attendance and responsibilities. And out of those, 3 were exonerated and 9 were sustained. And there is none of those should be pending. I was adding them up to verify the numbers, but no pending. And compared to this year, we also had 2 internal investigations. One was for body worn camera usage, 2 allegations of departmental reports, 1 for courtesy, carrying and use of a weapon, search and seizure, and then unsatisfactory performance. So those 2 investigations had 8 allegations, and they're still pending final outcomes. The disciplinary action for this year, for January, last year, I'm sorry, I'll go back to last year, we had 5, and it was 2 corrective actions for operating department vehicles, 2 for court appearance, 1 for unbecoming conduct, and 1 for patrol operations. So there was a total of 6 sustained allegations. This year we had 5 disciplinary actions, and the allegations were operating department vehicles, 3 court appearance, and 1, I don't know why that's a duplicate, of operating those vehicles. But, 5 allegations, all 5 allegations were found to be, unfalse, so it really should be 2 operating department vehicles. We need to work on that before this off.
Just lost enough.
And then, for February, 3
I
citizen
really think the
complaints.
mics are on.
And this is of 22. There were 3, so one was, officer traffic violator
Right on, Sean.
relations, and, 4 search and seizure allegations, and 1 courtesy allegation. All 6 were exonerated, versus this year, there were 3 citizen complaints for the month of February. 1 was for operating department vehicles, 3 for courtesy, and there was 1 allegation exonerated, and 3 are still pending final approval. As far as internal investigations for last year, there were 3 allegations: insubordination, intemperate behavior, processing of property and evidence, preliminary and follow-up investigations, departmental reports. There were 2 instances of that, and then use of force canine. There were 5 sustained allegations and 1 policy violation. Compared to this year, there was only 1 internal investigation. The allegations, there were 5 allegations of unbecoming conduct and 3 allegations of violation of rules, and those are still pending final approval. When you look at last year's inquiries or corrective actions or disciplinary actions, 2 disciplinary actions for operating department vehicles, 5 were for court appearance, and 1 for preliminary and follow-up investigations, and 1 for special weapons and tactics team. So there were a total of 5 sustained allegations out of those disciplinary actions. 5, that was, those not represented by the actions taken. This last year, there was only one, and that was a sustained complaint for court payments.
Question,
Yes.
what would operating a department vehicle, what would that involve? Complaint, violations?
A myriad of things, officers.
Speeding to catch up to a vehicle,
Speeding.
uh, going into another lane of traffic to bypass a vehicle to stop a vehicle. And if they don't do that, then
Off and on, Mindy, off and on.
that's a violation of state statute.
And the special weapons and tactics?
I believe that one was for a missed call out. So our SWAT team members are on an on-call schedule and the officer, I believe, missed a call out.
Excellent.
I didn't think this guy ever missed a call.
Sometimes they're sleeping soundly.
Yeah.
Times for sure.
Any other questions?
Very much so.
Then, use of force. We're good to do that.
I'll be here to assist.
Hello.
Welcome.
So the captain covered the hard part, which was the annual review. I'm assuming we're talking about January and February.
Yes.
So if you take a look at January 22 as compared to January 2023, in 2022, we had 9 use of force incidents. You fast forward to January, there's 10, so they're neck to neck. The biggest thing that you could point out at looking at these numbers is a trend of the total officers using force. In 2022, there's 18, and you fast forward to 2023, and there's 22. So essentially what you can get from that is we have multiple officers on scene when these incidents are occurring. And that goes into the officers de-escalating, which goes into the annual review of less use of force because they're talking more and there's more people on scene, which helps them use a minimal amount of force rather than a greater amount because there's more officers than one. And where we get that is when you look at the
You
number
get
of
your information
applications
to
of
last
force.
responder for your ring.
And let's go to 2023, there was 29 applications of force, and then 29 of them were unarmed arrest techniques. So there's no canine, there's no batons, there's no OC, there's no taser. It's basically officers grabbing a hold of somebody. And I think that's where we would prefer to operate basically, is just being able to handle somebody with our hands and using our tools if necessary. So you can see from the list on January 2022, there was a couple taser deployments, OC, and things like that in the past. We fast forward today, and all of them were just unarmed arrest techniques, which goes into some of those concepts I was talking about. Something that is interesting is we're seeing a slight increase in pursuits. As the captain mentioned, in 2022, there was only 1 pursuit. And then already this year, I think we're sitting at, according to this, 2 so far. So that's something that we're aware of. So if you go to February 2022 and February 2023, you're gonna see the same trends there. Not a whole lot of difference. I don't wanna go through every category unless you need me to, but if you look at the same concepts as in January, we have 9 force incidents, 13 officers were on those scenes, so again, multiple officers involved. And then again, the applications of force were all empty hand techniques, which the officers are going hands-on, there's nothing else involved there. And just briefly, I touched on how you see in January there was a pursuit, and then in February there was a pursuit, as compared to last year, we only had 1. So that is something we're aware of and we're taking a look into.
I see, it's great the unarmed arrest techniques have increased, but I'm also seeing, are there more officer injuries?
Yeah.
As a result of that, and are you seeing long-term injuries, victims comp, like out?
So I can't think, off the top of my head, I don't think we've had any major injuries from a use of force. A lot of times, especially on the unarmed techniques, cause you're taking people to the ground, officers will get bruised up or scraped up a little bit as they go to the ground, so, I don't think we've had any major injuries, resulting from the use of force.
Okay, so even just a bruise or a scrape
Yeah,
is
they-
reported as
yeah.
no surgery, okay.
Any, if they get a scratch on the arm, they'll report that as an injury, so.
Okay, alright. Thank you.
But that's a good question, and is definitely, over the last several years, as we pushed the de-escalation, as we pushed the slowing down, the concern among law enforcement across the nation was always more officers are gonna get hurt because you're doing that, and so we do watch those, and we have not seen that trend. It does go, like Sergeant Mosley saying, when we slow it down, we're able to get more backup. The more backup we have generally, then the less force we wind up having, to use, at least less severe force. So we have not seen, although we do watch any significant injuries that we're seeing. And certainly if we started to see a pattern, we'd have to review what we're doing, both policy and training wise.
That goes for the suspect as well, though. What we're seeing is that even though we're using hand techniques, we're seeing only minor injuries in suspects as well. And so, like, that was part of the use of force report from last year, is that there was one significant injury to the suspect, and the rest were very minor injuries, same thing, scrapes and bruises.
So chief, for your budget that's coming up, you don't need nearly as much tasers or OCs.
I will
Make sure
keep
put
you
that
away
in
from the
there.
city manager when I'm making my pitch, but thank you.
So if you'd like, as the chief said, we don't have any internal affairs case review. We were gonna discuss, some of the retention stuff, so I can do that under the internal affairs, since it's part of professional standards, if you like, or we can do it at a different point.
Thank you, Sean.
There's no need for a closed meeting on that, I don't believe so. So as Chief said, we are looking at, recruiting, of course, but also retention. One of the things that, we just this week, got finalized on, was we were contacted by Dr. Shear, from University of Southern Mississippi. He's the, primary author of the report that you all have. He reached out to us. He's continuing to do research in the area of retention and career perception by officers, and asked if he could come and if our agency would participate in a similar survey. So we are going to do that. That's going to take place at the end of towards the end of May. He's actually going to come and do our agency, the sheriff's office in Durango PD. So this is the previous survey that he had conducted from May of 2022 is when he published it. And so we're looking at it. I think it's going to be valuable for our agency. It's interestingly some of the stuff that he's seeing in here, number one, but it'll also be interesting to see how our agency looks against some of the previous work that he's done. So this was an eight department survey that he did. Page 3 shows the agencies, and the pages, they don't count the first couple of pages, so page 3 is actually a little ways in there. But it was Topeka Police Department, Smyrna, Georgia, Vernon Hills Police Department, Biloxi, Mississippi, Frederick, Thornton, Colorado, Bryan, Texas, and then probably the biggest one was Portland, Oregon. And they, in this report, they are about 25% of the responses. So you think with some of the stuff that's occurred in Portland, that their perceptions on retention and their perception on the career would be maybe disgruntled or otherwise, but it's the results are really pretty shocking. As you go into the next pages, each one of the questions that he has, I think it was 100 and some odd questions total. I don't know if he put all of the questions into the report or not, but I think he reported on 60 some of them in here. But when you start looking at it, just starting with the first one, table 2.1, the question was, I find real enjoyment in my job, and then they had strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. If you look at that, between strongly agree and agree, it's in somewhere around 80%, of the officers from these different agencies were saying that. You know, as you go through different stuff, again, table 2.9, there's an open dialogue with my immediate supervisors. Over 90%, I think, on that one. 2.10, I have at least one trusted agency mentor I can speak with for career advice. Again, over, or close to 90%, agreed with that. It's a very wide-ranging study. It's those types of jobs. It gets into other stuff, training. So again, my agency's field training program prepared me for the career. Again, upwards of 85%, over 85% saying that they agree or strongly agree with that. Then they go into questions about the police career. I'm planning to leave my job for one outside of policing in the near future. Again, over 75% disagreed or strongly disagreed. So to me, that's shocking when 25% of your respondents are from Portland, Oregon. That many are saying, I'm not looking for another job outside of policing. So, again, I intend to seek employment in a different agency in the near future. Again, close to 90% saying no on that. So it goes on, goes into questions about compensation and benefits. It's, you know, different sections, questions about interactions with the public and things of that sort. You know, that's where some stuff does get, you know, there's questions on individual members of the public are difficult to please. On that one, there's 70% where they're agreeing with that, with those statements. But it continues on, and in all, it is a very positive report from the officer. It goes in further on into the incident with George Floyd. It goes into the department's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and things like that. But again, by and large, almost all of them across the board are very positive. So, you know, based on just looking at it, it doesn't appear a lot of the stuff that we typically maybe thought just anecdotally is true. And so that's, you know, this is going to be something I think will benefit our agency. They'll be able to look at this and strategize a little bit on what really is making the difference for officers to stay in there. And you know, in the end, he does talk it, and there probably is some truth. And the reality is people get in this job to make a difference, and they want to feel like they're doing meaningful work. And so that's probably a big aspect. The more we as an agency and truly we as a community can do that, I think the better off we'll be at keeping people in the job. So
he's going to survey your department.
yeah.
And how are those surveys conducted? I kind of live in a world of surveys and
Yeah.
digs deep.
I don't know yet. I just made contact with him last week. My understanding is he'll do briefings where he's passing them out, passing out the surveys and doing them during briefings. He also has the ability to do them electronically.
I didn't know if they were done away from,
Like with me looking over their
Right.
shoulder.
Helping them fill it out.
Hey, I think you meant A on that one.
I didn't feel like there's some sort of
No,
pressure. It's
Yeah.
done in confidentiality.
Yeah, I believe so. The Michael Rosler, the second author on the front, my understanding is he's more of the numbers guy and the statistician guy, and has a background in research. So you know, my experience in the academic world is they usually structure those to try to minimize bias and so on. So I'm assuming that they will. I haven't gotten into the details with them yet.
Just glancing over these numbers, the two that jumped out to me as kind of the ones that make sense, like he lost a couple of people because the hours and so when I look at that on table 239, it gives me good opportunity to raise a family and then provides a good life-work balance. Those two middle, like agree and disagree, are the two closest in those two columns and anybody thinks, so that's pretty telling that it's probably, they appreciate and love the work, but it's probably a tough one family.
So it's, no doubt, I mean, shift work is definitely.
And that's actually the one that's leaving here pretty quick for a different job, short of retirement. That's almost exactly his view of it. He likes the job and actually is a good officer for us, young. But it just isn't working with the family and even discussions, which, you know, we aren't in a hurry to do it, but I'm open to discussions of, okay, we could make exceptions for individuals under certain circumstances. That gets dicey to do, right? And, you know, but these are dicey days, so, okay, what is the issue? And it really wasn't even the shift, it's the hours, it's the coming in for court on off days, it's other things that, you know, even if I wanted to control, I can't control. So it, you know, it is a challenging job, you know, and you know it too. Shift work is challenging, but then just the additional requirements of being a police officer
For the
makes it
record,
part of the
welcome
balance.
in.
And that's something the chief and the DCs and the captains are meeting this afternoon, and that's something we are gonna look at. We haven't really paid that close of attention to where in the agency are we losing our people? Are they coming from a single shift? Is it, hey, it's the graveyard, it's the 5-yard graveyard cop that's just burnt out? Or is it
When you have officers that leave on their own terms, do you guys do exit interviews?
we do, and they're voluntary, of course, but, and they're hit or miss. You know, we've gotten some information out of it that we've been able to act on and say, okay, that's something we need to look into, and then other times you could tell that they're.
Work-life balance is a bigger subject, not just in this arena, but in the whole, it's a challenge that for retention for everybody, I think, and that's.
Yeah.
to me,
Captain, if the police department wanted you to have a family, they would have issued.
Yeah. I've heard that.
That used to be the
Yeah.
that's not.
That actually makes me choke up just hearing it, but, actually, I have to choke on those words halfway through it, never mind.
I've heard those words in a different.
Yeah, I spent
in a
20 years
different
in
life.
the Marine Corps, I use it a lot.
I spent 4 years there and heard that many a time, so.
So if you look at these themes and these conclusions, you would think recruiting and retaining wouldn't be difficult, but
Right.
it is.
Yeah, so that's, I think, you know, and hopefully in working with some university researchers
No,
that,
for the record, no,
that
not yet.
hopefully they can help us.
It all comes
Shed
down to
light on it.
pool, it all comes down to pool here in
Mhm.
Farmington.
It does.
You have a lower-based individual, a lot of marijuana use and DUIs and so forth and so on. The kids that are coming out of high school are not physically fit. So you got some problems, and it's a small agency anyway compared to all of these big agencies. And then your recruitment. I mean, who's your recruiting officer? Is it the chief? Is he going on all these boondoggles or what?
The chief is our number one recruiting officer. No, we have, so that is something that we did, a couple years ago, is we split our recruiting unit from our training unit, so they are two separate, independent, which we've seen some benefit from that, in that, in the past, you know, we have annual training that we have to get done, and so recruiting kind of gets pushed to the back burner while those officers are conducting training, and then they're scrambling to get through it. So now we have a dedicated training unit, a dedicated recruiting unit, and so they're able to do that. So our numbers coming in, the number of applications that we're having is probably as good as it's been at any time. Again, maybe the quality varies from what we've seen.
Well, it's nationwide, it's not just a local.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And we try to balance, we want, you know, when you look into the research behind it, you want people that are invested in the community, so you wanna recruit from your own community, but we also have to try and, go outside the area
Yeah, you
as
need
well.
some young officers out there recruiting instead of older folks.
Yeah, no, we're very good at, I'm very happy with where our recruiters are right now. They're doing a great job on getting out and talking to people. And like I said, the application numbers are actually very good right now as far as the number of applications. And it's the weeding through and finding the ones that we think, are going to be successful. And that's, if I could figure out the magic potion for being able to predict the future, then I'd be a rich man, but I'm not there yet.
We're hoping that,
Constables are high standards.
yeah, we're hoping the survey does help. Cause I think the public views it, and heck, you know, we do to an extent too, is, you know, officers are demoralized, it's all bad news. But when you actually look at the survey results, actually the officers are finding the job is meaningful. They like being part of the solution in the community. That's things that we can market to prospective recruits that I think coming in don't think that that's the way the officers view the job. So I actually was surprised by those, especially from Portland, because they've certainly been under scrutiny. And, you know, I think we'll see what our results are, and hopefully they're right along in line with that. As he does more departments, I think, obviously broader base on a survey, we'll get more meaningful data. But that's something we can turn around and market. And it kind of goes to what you saw with our recruiting video, where we're talking about now is the time. You know, it is more of a Marine Corps type recruiting thing. I think they think the money's okay, that, you know, the money's not fantastic, it's not terrible, but they're not really doing it for the money in the first place. They're certainly not staying for money. They're staying because they believe they're making a difference and it's a rewarding career. And so that's the thing we have been pushing and, you know, we'll continue to work.
Intrinsic value.
Yes, sir.
There's not a lot of fields that offer the type of retirement.
True.
It's a super interesting thing with that though, is our same thing, our young cops, they don't, you know, maybe,
Can't see that part.
yeah, 5-10 years in now, it starts to, hey, you know, I only got this much more time to go, before I'll have a pension the rest of my life, but when they come in, we can talk till we're blue in the face about it, and it's, might as well be telling them they're just,
TikTok world where everything's 12 seconds long or 8 seconds long, so seeing 35 years in the future is probably not.
Have you banned that in your department, by the way?
You know, I have not, but we have a hard social media policy on what we can do and what we can't do, especially representing the agency and the city. So,
You had that for your social media.
yes, yes.
So we had a good cross-section of the country when they
yeah,
did this, so.
They did.
it is, yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to see, I don't know,
I don't know what it takes to get your results of yours.
I'm not sure yet, yeah, I've only interacted with him, Captain Fetzer at the sheriff's office called me about it and said, hey, we're looking at participating, would you all be interested? And we've actually participated in other research projects with different universities, so we've kind of got a standard response of yes on that. If somebody wants to do research and see how we can improve the profession, then we're in on it. So I talked with him, and then I've only been in contact with him by email, but I'm scheduled to talk with him next week. So.
It's surprising the number of them that have bachelor's degrees.
Yeah, I was.
It's excellent. Okay, thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So we skipped over, we'll go back on new business. Any new business from members? Nope. Citizens input? All right. Okay, next meeting is May 16th, 2023. Hope everybody will be here. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make motion to adjourn.
Oh. No. Everybody wants to adjourn, all right. We got a second, so all those in favor adjourning? Aye. Any opposed? We're done. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, Gloria. Thanks.
Next time.
Fell asleep.
What is report? Welcome in.
Did everybody get signed in? So you can get that?
No, I'll send that. 10 days, Durango Herald.
Let me grab the sign in sheet.
Okay, well, that was good.
No, Chris. No, we didn't. You don't have it. You don't have it. You got a sign-in sheet over there?
Yeah, he's signing it right now. Well, thank you. She does attendance, huh? That's right, and she just, oh my gosh, I said it's a bad sign.
Justin, how are you?
How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?
Good.
Good, good.
I don't know that we've ever met in person.
Oh, yeah, you heard of me though.
I talked to you, Captain Lacey.
Captain Lacey, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're working on that thing again from E-Craft, that's all. Have you got back to the other independent journalists, President of Transparency?
Yeah. Have I gotten back to him?
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I'm trying to think of it. I know the case, it was, I watched the video on it.
Yeah.
I'm just drawing a blank right now.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. Yeah,
It was at Department of Health, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I remember it. I don't know where it's at right now. I'd have to go and look on my computer to see it, so.
Yeah, that's all we want. That's what my channel's all about. You know, like I said, accountability, transparency. We don't hate cops. We just like the ones that don't honor their oath. You know. So,
Yeah. Like I said, I don't mind ever having a conversation with you. So.
oh yeah, yeah.
Good to see you. Good to meet you in person.
Oh yeah, you too. Appreciate it. Yeah.
To be fair, that was
Captain Lacey, Chris Albright, great.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming down.
Well, no, I live here, I come from Farmington County.
Oh, good. Oh, really? You're gonna be great. Thank you.
That's Captain Lacey. I guess he's a captain. I'm a problem with transparency. That's what we're about.
Yeah, they're always there regardless.
This is gonna be,
Yeah. And then the lieutenant.
How do you offend them?
I'll give you my slug anywhere.
Hey David, how are you?
good to see you in person. It was like Halloween.
How are you? Good to see you, yes, it was.
All right.
They're starting to newspaper.
Yeah,
I have heard that.
yeah, it's going in Friday, well, supposed to be April 17th. Please kick off.
And I added copies as well.
Thank you.
Very good.
Good seeing you all.
Thank you, good seeing you.
You have to.
All right.
Like I
How
said.
you doing, sir?
How you doing, sir?
Good, good. You say you're from
David
Durango?
Albright. I'm from here,
You're from here?
but I cover San Juan County for the Herald.
Okay, the newspaper.
Right, and we got a new paper
I've
coming in.
I've heard of you.
Have you?
Yeah, yeah.
And what is your name, sir?
My name is Justin. Justin. I got my channel name's Four Corner Fist in the Air.
And what's your last name? Okay. And you have a channel that you do a YouTube channel?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's all about accountability and transparency.
Great.
Four Corner, the four with the C. Four Corner. FIST.
Did you say at?
No, just
No, FIST?
N without the I.
Oh,
Fist,
Four Corner.
fist in the air.
Oh, Fist in the Air. I'm sorry. Fist in the Air.
The N without the I. That would be without that. Just all together one word.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll find it. I will find it. Because I might reference that. I'm starting to cover all the local police fire, you name it, any of the government agencies.
Yeah, same here.
Coverage.
Exercising my first, you know, as an independent journalist.
That's cool.
Yeah, right on.
Hey, what's your contact number? Can I get your phone number?
I'll write it down here for you in a bit.
Okay.
Okay. All right, everybody. I'm gonna cut my live. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate it.